So on a hot summer day, a couple of years ago, you received an honorary doctorate degree. You're already a man of letters. You're already a man that has achieved a lot. And it would have been very easy for you to stand on that stage and give a speech about excellence, a speech about achievement, a speech about vision and dreaming big. But instead, you made the day about everybody else. The grandmothers out there, and I'm talking about the day of your honorary degree at Morehouse. I watched that video many, many times, and I took the opportunity to look at the reaction in the faces behind you. And some of those faces are extraordinary. There's one of the guys, I'm told he's a dean, and I just, you know, the one I'm talking about. I mean, he was ebullient in terms, and he didn't believe what he had just heard. Take us through not just the speech and what you did, and folks can read about that. I want to know when you came up with the idea, what you had to do to figure out how to implement it, and then that moment when you actually got to say it. Take us behind it, Robert.
Sure. So about a year before that, I was invited to visit Morehouse and participate in what they call a candle in the dark ceremony. Mm-hmm. And it is a wonderful tradition of honoring African-American contributors to society. And I think, you know, we have some wonderful traditions in our community, and some in our HBCUs, and certainly in Alpha Phi Alpha. I don't know about the other fraternities, but part of those traditions and honoring those traditions is to also stand back and reflect on where we have come and where we need to go. And when you walk the campus with these young men and hear their dreams and goals and aspirations, and this was a year before all of this, you know, fuss took place, and, you know, really take a look at who they are and what they can accomplish. And then you hear the flip side of the burdens of debt and the burdens of lack of opportunity. And so you think about, this gets back to, you know, how do you live an inspired life? And I say one of the most important things that I can do, or any of us can do, is to liberate a human spirit. Mm-hmm. Okay, and to liberate that spirit to become its best self. And it can be in music or business or art or whatever it might be. And that's part of what was my calling and passion. And so before, a year later, they asked me to become, you know, the commencement speaker. And I did want it to be a surprise, mm-hmm. not only the students, but also the faculty. So I would ask pointed questions. Mm-hmm. They didn't know why I was asking, well, what's the average amount of debt that the Morehouse student carries? And tell me about the average amount that they make when they graduate. And, you know, I would do it in spots in time so they couldn't connect the dots. Mm-hmm. And I realized that the greatest gift I could give these students was the gift of freedom, mm-hmm. financial freedom. And so that they could think about and then act upon what they believe is the right thing for them to do in their life. Look, I'm not, like all things, I'm not imposing any condition on them to do anything.
Right.
Outside of be thoughtful African-American males who graduated from Morehouse. Mm-hmm. And that's what I thought about. And I didn't, and again, I had no idea that it would honestly, you know, be so well known. And in all frankness, and so when I delivered the speech, and I was on vacation with my wife and children, and, you know, I delivered the speech and went off stage, and then I literally left to go back on vacation. And, you know, I get back to the house, and my phone's just ringing and ringing and ringing, and I turn it off because we're, you know, supposed to be on vacation. And finally I turn over, had like 80 text messages. And I'm like, and then, you know, my friend says, Robert, call me immediately. And he's like, oh my God, we're just getting, if you've seen this. I'm like, no, I've seen anything, right? And then I realized, like all things, you know, everyone understands, you know, these burdens that these children have that are now released. And everybody also understood, you know, the act of doing that creates a multi-generation ripple for those families. And I now know these young men because I get a chance to, you know, I think I told you, once a month we talk, we chat. Well, we do more than talk and chat. But anyway, you understand what now they believe they are capable of on the one hand. And the thing I didn't realize until much, much later was that it was so important for that to be done by an African-American male at Morehouse.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I didn't think about that as part of what I was doing, but they have told me how important it was, just how it was important for me to see people like Reg Lewis go buy a company, $1 billion company, and important for me to see people like Stan O'Neill become CFO of Merrill Lynch and John Utendahl become, vice chairman at Bank of America, all those things, and seeing Ray McGuire becoming, vice chairman at Citi and all that. Those are the things that ultimately you start to realize if you don't see someone who looks like you in those roles, it's sometimes really hard for you to envision yourself doing those sorts of things. So that's why it's so critically important that we portray ourselves in the media in a way that is inspirational to our young people.
Appreciate you sharing the personal story. So in the last segment of our interview, Robert, you and I thought that we'd have an opportunity to talk about some things that everyone can relate to and get your impression of them. So some of these may be a little edgy and some of them may be at some point a little dark, but they're things that have happened in the world. We didn't create these. And as human beings, we have a relationship to them and an insight. And so as you and I sort of source the list, the first one on the list is, as a young boy, you were able to look on TV and see the footage of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. Can you talk about what that impact had on your life?
Yeah. And you and I talked a bit about this, Bob, and I still get choked up when I think about that. A 6-year-old, just started getting on this bus, 6 months, right? Yep. Going across town to this school as one of 3 African-American children in my classroom. And, we'd go across this bus and, you 6 months into this, you realize that these kids in that classroom were just like you.
Yeah.
And, you hear the words what your parents tell you about, all humans, and the words you learn in church, and we're all, created equal. And you start to understand and feel that as a young person. And then they assassinate Dr. King. And, it was the first time I had seen my mother and my father cry in our house. And my mother and a lot of the women in our neighborhood all made, little black armbands for the children that we'd wear to school. And we wore them to school, and none of the children at the school had armbands except those who got off that bus. And I couldn't understand for so long, why not? Why don't you feel the same pain that we feel? And, I'm young. And, I know I saw a lot of heated arguments with the older kids, the 5th and 6th graders. I didn't know what that was about. But, in reflecting on it, we all felt this pain and didn't understand why there was no empathy for our community and what we were going through, and frankly, what we as all Americans were going through with the murder of Dr. King. And when I think about that to this day, I'm a little heartbroken because, as a child, these were your friends, but yet they didn't understand the grief that you felt. And you couldn't, I'm, 6, 7 years, I couldn't express it. How could I express it? I didn't know how to express it, but I felt it.
So let's contrast that with one of the brightest, hopeful moments. Yes, we can, right? The Yes, We Can campaign led by President Barack Obama. There were many moments in that we all marveled at. But the day you saw him on that inaugural stage and raise his hand on the Bible and take the oath of office as a president. What did you feel that day, Robert?
Sure. Let me give you one interim first, because I want to contrast
Sure.
the expression that I couldn't, articulate as a young man, as a child with Dr. Martin Luther King, with what happened when they murdered George Floyd. What I saw was a community of Americans expressing empathy. Mm-hmm. Okay. And that was a big contrast for me. Mm-hmm. And that's an important thing that I think about and I communicate to my children now, is this has changed from when I was a child. And, we have now, unfortunately, Dante Wright's murder we now have to deal with. And we're tired of dealing with this. But we have to deal with it until we end racism. That's what we have to do. Yeah. And I recall, getting to your question, President Obama being inaugurated, and my grandfather, and I said, "Granddad, this is just fantastic." And I called a friend, Senator Ted Kennedy, God rest his soul, and his wife Vicki, and Senator Kennedy and Vicki gave me their tickets to the inauguration, because I wanted to take my grandfather. And my grandfather, it was a freezing cold day, and my grandfather was 93, and they made him walk, and he and I walk all the way there, and he didn't miss a step, didn't miss a stride, it was not cold. He sat down, and we sat next to each other, and he's of course pointing to all the celebrities in the where we were sitting by, and it's, "Oh, that's so and so, that's so." And I said, that's terrific. And of course he wanted to take pictures and talk to every guard and every person. And as we sat there, my grandfather looked up in the Capitol building, and he said, "Hey, Robbie, you see kind of that fourth flag over?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "I used to work there." I said, "What do you mean?" And I had no idea. He said, "Yeah, I worked in the Senate lounge when I was a teenager."
Wow.
I said, "Doing what?" I had no idea. He said, "Oh, I was I used to check coats and serve coffee and tea to the senators." He said, "I remember when FDR was getting inaugurated, I was looking out the window and I didn't see a black face in the crowd." He said, "Now I'm sitting here with my grandson watching the first African-American president get inaugurated." And he looked at me, he said, "Isn't it wonderful, the capacity that Americans have to change?"
Wow.
That's what I remember about that day.
Wow. Poignant stories. So I'm gonna give you the last one and then we can wrap. Tell me what your dreams are for your children, right? They clearly will lead a different life than most African-American children will ever lead. But you have some philosophies that you shared with me. You're not pointed in terms of what you need them to be. Tell us about what your aspirations are for your children and their lives.
That's a great question. I'm literally going back and forth today with my 3 older children who were just distraught, in tears, in pain, dealing with, Dante Wright's murder.
Yeah.
And literally, before I got on this call, we're back and forth and texting and FaceTiming and literally dealing with literal tears. And I tell them, there's a couple things that we have to remember. People have the capacity to change, and part of what we have to do is drive forward the ideas that change is important, and that we have to end racism in this country, and they have to do their part. And they may have a small platform or medium-sized or large platform, but it matters in every interaction that they have in that context. I tell them that there's 3 rules that I'm giving them in life, and 3 gifts. The first is you are enough. You are enough to make that difference, enough to make a change, enough to help others change. The second rule I tell them is, I hope they discover the joy of figuring things out. And the third thing is love that is all that matters. And that they need to be part of, the beloved community, and to use love as the answer to solve the problems, and to speak, this truth with love, and to speak and move with love in their hearts, irrespective of how challenging other people may make the environment. So that's what I hope to leave for them, and indelible gifts that I hope that they can plow forward in their lives successfully.
Wow. Thank you for sharing those three nuggets with us. You are enough, the joy, discovering the joy of figuring things out, and love is all that matters. I appreciate you, man. I thank you for always coming through for me, always coming through for your fellow members of this organization. And I thank you for always sticking by the people in your Denver community, and the people now in your global community. We love you and we appreciate you, and we're blessed to know you. You want to find a word?
No, thank you, good brother. Thank you for all you do. And look, like all things, we all got our parts. So let's continue doing what we do.
Awesome. Let's do it, man. Onward and upward.
Word and upward. All the best to you, brother.
Very best. Thank you.